Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's 2025. I'm starting a channel centered around a 14-year-old game and a 2-year-old world. What a time to be alive. So I'm here at spawn, which admittedly has been neglected. I did place a couple chests here after I was forced to make, the long walk of shame after dying without a bed. But really there hasn't been much action in this area since I created the world. Spawn does bring back some memories. I think it was the first or second night. I lost my bed, wandered around the area trying to find it, almost died. Wonderful memories. Let's move on. Follow me to the Folly. I think we should walk. So yeah, I created this path so I had something to follow when I did those walks of shame. Yes, walks of shame would be the proper way to say that. Walks would be plural, not shames. Okay, so yeah, I just basically laid down some path blocks with some slabs just so I could have something to follow, because it is very easy, as you saw from that previous video, to get lost in the woods. When I spawned in this world, this is the primary direction I traveled, therefore it's the primary direction I built. Up there is some basic infrastructure that I've been building throughout my world, which is an elevated rail for minecarts. And over here is actually one of the earlier builds. It is what I title my folly. So a folly is a British term. Basically, it's when some rich dude puts up a tower, some sort of structure that's out of time. They're usually built to look like it's some medieval structure, but they, were thrown up in the 1800s or something like that. They're quite often dilapidated because that rich person could have lost access to the land or what have you. I built something inspired by one of those, just basically to mark the entrance to an amethyst geode. As you can see, there's 2 bubble columns, one going down, one going up, and that is essentially what my folly is there for. It's just basically to mark that that's the first geode I found, and I wanted to return to it to harvest the shards, and that's what I did. Okay, across the intersection, traveling in this direction, is the aforementioned elevated rail. I have a bunch of these, I think like 4 maybe. Essentially, these are stops on my rail. This is the closest to spawn, farthest from my starter and castle areas. I open this chest, there's a minecart, and yes, I realize this could be a dispenser, and it could be filled with minecarts, and I push the button, and The minecart shoots out and then I jump in automatically. I just didn't do that. So I push this button and off we go. So this will take us directly to my starter neighborhood, I guess you could call it. As you can see, the path also continues on from the Folly all the way through. There's a nice cave through the mountain. And on the other side is my starter area. Here's another piece of the infrastructure. I always get stuck here. Yeah, get through, get through, get through. Yes, okay. And into the ride. All right, I really need to start distributing these a little bit better. Okay, so this one, as you can see, is fully oxidized because I load this area quite often. This is also the first stop that I built. And this is my starter area. Initially, I built not my starter base, I guess you could call it, the starter house or what have you, but initially I actually built this structure. The structure on top came after the structure below, and the structure below is a trading hall. So the first thing I did in this world is I stole a bunch of villagers from a nearby village, which no longer exists. I wanted gear, I wanted books, I wanted to kind of shortcut the whole mining, even though it's called Minecraft, and cut right to the chase, so I could start getting blocks and start building. Right off the bat, I got 1 emerald trades for all the armor. I have 1 emerald trades for a pickaxe and an axe, and 1 emerald trade for the sword and also an axe. Oh, almost forgot. I also have 1 emerald trade for the diamond hoe, which is really the most important. Yes, this area, it is decorated, but I do not plan on this being a permanent piece of my infrastructure. All these guys are soon to be moved to my castle. That's kind of where we're at. After the 2 years is we are moving finally out of the starter area. You'll see my base is pretty much empty as far as storage and what have you, and we're moving into a castle. Above this trading hall is how I get the villagers, which is essentially a combined breeder and iron farm. This is an Impulse SV design. I think I first saw it in his hardcore world, but 3 villagers here, 1 zombo, and a farmer for carrots. All right, let me go sleep really quick, because I don't want a bunch of things spawning, and this area, despite it being 2 years old, still has things spawning in it. Welcome back. Let's cover what I built next, which is what we're standing in right now. This is my starter base. This is my bedroom to my starter base. This is actually my bedroom in real life, because my starter base is modeled after my actual home. It's a Cape Cod built in the Midwest. I built it because I like the look of my house, and I figured, hey, why not? Let's put it in. It's actually decorated fairly similarly to my home. Here's an upright piano, a living room with a fireplace, and the stolen youth from a giant beast. All these chests are empty because, as I mentioned before, we actually moved out of this space into the castle a little while ago. This served as my storage area, and some of my first farms are in this building as well. Down here is where most of those farms existed, and some of them still do. So I have a little dripstone lava farm, a glow lichen farm, an obsidian farm, a honeycomb and honey bottle and honey block farm, a sheep farm, or wool farm rather, and 2 allays that are just kind of like, you know, hanging out. And last but not least, a sea pickle farm. All these are the leftovers. I did also have a farmer villager farming wheat over here and a sugarcane farm right over here. The sugarcane farm was just too small for my needs, and the farmer farming wheat I moved to my processing plant, which we will get to in a second. Here is the dining room, kitchen, as you can see, brew stand, stonecutter, all the accoutrements that a Minecrafter needs. Upstairs, I have an enchanting setup, which, because of the villager hall, trading hall, I really don't use this. Sorry, Mojang. I just do not enchant things very often. However, I do still have a bunch of like leftover books, and I think some of these books are actually enchanted books. Probably some good ones. After that, what do we have? We have some bedrooms. Nothing really super special. Little laundry facility. And, oh yeah, back here is an office that basically just holds all my record. I have most of them. I don't have the trial chambers discs, not all of them at least yet. Hopefully I will get those at some point in the future. Up here's an attic. Not really much to see. Yeah, just an attic space. What else? Oh, and then just, yeah, the bedroom that we started out in. Oh, yeah. Also, a little recovery chest. So if I do sleep in this bed and end up dying, I can come over here and get all my stuff and go fight whatever killed me. Here is a lodestone. This is what my main compass kind of starter base, area points to. And a balcony out the back. Yeah, so let's tour the third... Why did I do that? Let's tour the third structure that I built now. The third structure that I built is a Colonial Revivalist style house. And basically, it doesn't have an interior. Well, I mean, it does. You'll see in a second. Its interior is to kill the bad guys. Ooh, that's loud. So, as you can see, this has been running for a while. I lived in this area again for 2 years of play. Built a lot of things here, spent a lot of time. So I have chests upon chests just filled with all the basic drops that you will get from a generic mob farm. The rotten flesh, you'll see very little of that because I actually take that and trade it with a cleric at my lighthouse, which you'll see in a second. But all the rest of these chests are just plumb full of the bad guys' loot. Back here, I have a functioning disc farm. So I have this guy right here. He will attempt to shoot me, and the arrow will travel through the lava, hit a TNT block, and all the creepers that are in this pool of water will die, and I will collect their discs. All right, outside of this home is my fourth build, and it has no function. It was just an excuse basically to build this style of a downtown city kind of building. This is actually modeled off of a bar called the Logger House in Corktown, Detroit. Very accurately modeled, I might say. Inside, I have a bartender. You can hear him making noise. So yeah, I did the whole, got a illager with a crossbow, and I made him run out of arrows or break his crossbow. He serves as the Logger House bartender. Here is all my show posters. So this is actually fairly accurate to how it looks inside. A very small stage, 2 rooms. And if I push this button, it connects to a note block song. And this note block song is actually an original song by my band, The Belle. Well, at least the melody, the first intro melody. Upstairs, there's nothing. This I had an idea to make into like an apartment bedroom kind of thing, but never really had a use for it, so it didn't end up making the cut. That is the Logger House. What should I move to? Oh, 5th build. I'm going to lose count, so I need to stop numbering these things. The 5th build is an aquarium. So this is actually the Belle Aquarium, modeled after a real aquarium in Detroit again. Just the facade, at least. This is one of my regrets in the build, is not the look of the facade or anything, but I actually don't like that it's built into the mountain. I wish I just built it standalone, and I also wish I built it a little larger inside. So inside, you'll see it's actually completely furnished as an aquarium. I have all 4 naturally spawning axolotls. I know a blue axolotl can naturally spawn, but I'm not doing the breeding up, at least not yet. I'm sure my 10th year in this world, I might breed up these guys to try to get a blue axolotl. Just some tropical fish, the 3 frogs, and 1 dolphin. Used to be 2 in here, but anyone who plays Minecraft for a while knows it's hard to keep these guys alive. Bonnie and Clyde were their names, and I don't know who's left, Bonnie or Clyde, but one of them left their soulmates behind. We got some turtles, and they love that bubble column. And we have a glow squid. I'm going to put a regular squid in here as well, but just haven't gotten around to it. All right, that is 5th build. Oh, almost nighttime. Let me take a quick rest, and we will continue with the tour. And here are the additional builds in my starter area. I threw this barn up shortly after the aquarium, just kind of fill out this area, as well as terraforming this pond and terraforming this waterfall. I also terraformed this pond. It connects to a river or stream, whatever, and that stream goes all the way to the ocean, quite a few blocks away near the lighthouse, which we will tour in a second. So inside the barn is some horses and donkeys and mules. So I did spend an embarrassing amount of time trying to get the perfect horse, and I will happily say I did succeed. Well, technically I did succeed, but there are 2 horses. One has the max jump and one has the max speed, but I could never get both of those characteristics in one. These guys are not said horse is. These guys are actually rejects, but they're really close to those max specs. I just left them in here. Upstairs in the barn, I have a little hay storage, as well as just a surplus of diamond armor. When you wander around a world after 2 years, you just end up with so much. I had a bunch of gold and silver as well, or chainmail. I just got rid of it because who cares? Outside of the barn, we have a structure that I am not happy with. This will probably go the way of the dodo. It will be torn down because, one, it blocks this kind of valley path through here, which I do not like the placement of. Another is it was kind of a temporary structure because I was trying to get all the goat horns, which I did succeed. These guys are actually 3 screaming goats that are left. And after succeeding at that mission, I really don't have a use for this structure, nor do I particularly like it. So I'm going to tear it down and expand this road or this path so it can wrap around this building, which is inside the valley of this mountain. Inside the valley of this mountain is actually a castle that I'm moving everything into. All right, let us move to the next building that I threw together. A massive structure. This one took a while. This is probably the biggest build I did at that point in time. Took a while to trade for the bricks, took a while to get the quartz, which I also traded for. It is quite large. It is 3 floors, could have been 4 if you actually count the roof. This served as my storage facility. This storage facility uses the Impulse SV filter system. I used to have all the chests basically from start to the end here filled. I have a super smelter array, furnace array, whatever you want to call it. My original food source was a cow crusher right here. And upstairs, I have a moss farm. Right now it's farming pale moss, but usually this is just regular moss. And inside here, there's always some leakage with this one. Inside here, I have a bamboo and sugarcane farm. So combined, the bamboo just grows so quickly that I ended up tearing up all but like 1 row of bamboo for a little while. Now I have them back because this area isn't loaded quite as often as it used to be, so the speed is pretty good. I also had this farm before bamboo wood was a thing. Now that bamboo wood is a thing, I go through it a lot faster. Here is where my wheat farmer from the basement of the starter house moved to. I have an alley floating around this lead right here, because occasionally when this guy harvests the wheat, this farmer harvests the wheat, some of the items will actually be just on the edge of this fence, like right here on the wood, so the hoppers underneath cannot pick them up. So that's why he's here. The other guys have sugarcane and bamboo in their hands, so they're supposed to help collect all the leakage from this farm. However, they do a really poor job because they just constantly float up there where there's a trap door and get stuck. It's perfect timing. They're literally stuck right now. They're just jagwagons. Okay, here is a cocoa bean farm. I don't really use brown dye that much, but I built this because I needed a little, and yeah, I just have a surplus. That is it for this floor. Let's go down to the basement. The basement's actually the last floor that I built. I originally didn't have this structure with a basement. It turned out kind of cool. I have all the duct work and what have you down here. Cactus farm. And the original reason I built this basement is to house this, a basalt farm. I needed a bunch of basalt and was sick of going into the nether to harvest it, so I built this farm. And it actually turns out pretty good. I think it gets me 2 stacks and some change every single time I rip this apart. So yeah, just basically a basalt generator over here with the lava. And in the corner I just squeezed this rooted dirt for roots, hanging roots. I just needed a bunch of them. I actually have them decorated around here. So yeah, I just did that really quick, threw it together, and it works pretty well. Now that you've seen all the farms that are inside this facility, let's talk about the design a little bit. So as you can see, I have hazard paint, keeping safe areas marked off from unsafe areas, very typical in factories and industrial facilities. Fluorescent, the boring, fluorescent lighting. And upstairs, we have a lot of duct work, also fluorescent lighting. So a little bit of lore, a little bit of imaginary spaces and what have you, imaginary functions. Everything is hanging, nothing's floating in space. So like this observer here is hanging from the ceiling. All the lighting is hanging from the ceiling. The farm requires quite a bit of light, so you'll see quite a few fluorescent lights above that, as well as the sea lanterns outlining, which I imagine is other fluorescent light or grow lamps surrounding the bamboo and sugarcane farm. Just like the Russell Industrial, there is certain window design, so it's a lot of colored panes and stuff like that, and certain areas are either boarded up or have kind of air conditioning units or fans, ventilation, what have you. So that's why some of these little sandstone pieces exist, especially in the back. Ooh, let's pop you back where you belong. Okay, let's go upstairs to the roof, where we also squeezed in a couple farms. Hopefully these alleys aren't being jackwagons. Yes, they are. Oh, great. That guy's going to try to squeeze out as soon as I get up there. Get out of here. There we go. All right, up here, you'll see a very similar farm to the basalt farm as far as its, piston pusher. So this is my clay farm. So it starts out as dirt, turns to mud, and then slowly to clay. I also have a system where the dispenser kicks out a bottle and then immediately fills it in this little column here, and they float up and then go back down in the hopper, and Bob's your uncle. Here's a little bed. If I'm doing a workout here and it's sunset, I like to run over here. This is a fake water tower. As you can see, dripstone on the bottom. I also have dripstone blocks on the top just because I like the look of it. Dripstone on the bottom to turn this into clay. It needs to be harvested right now. How much? Okay, yeah, plenty of dirt. And solar panels, which is, fun. Okay, so that is it for this facility, factory, storage area, whatever you want to call it. Let's see, we should move on to the aviary. The aviary. This is one of the structures like the logger house that does not have an actual function. I guess technically it does house a conduit right here in this kind of center fountain area. But other than that, it's just for aesthetics. I do have every variant of parrots. So I have the blue one, the gray one, the green one up there in the bushy leaves. I also have the red one tucked over here and the light blue one over here. There's also bees pollinating all the flowers, but yes, again, aesthetic, just for nice looks, and with shaders on, the sun gleams through these windows, and it looks really nice. Not much function. Outside of these doors is a building with function. Tree farm is hidden inside, needs a lot of vertical space, so I built a structure around it. This is actually one of those things that I'm not super happy with. Everything about the aesthetics and the look of it, I do enjoy. I love the glazed terracotta here. I love the transition from that to the andesite and up. However, I just think this is too short, this building overall. I think it needs to be probably a good 40% taller. Like maybe if I take a section, like this section right here, duplicated it here, and then move the entire top up, it would give the look that I was hoping for, but that's just not what happens. So in order to fix it, unfortunately, I'd have to tear it at least down to here, this entire top section, and I just do not have the energy right now to do it. It will happen. It will happen. I mean, this is a forever world. It's going to happen. But I just don't have the energy, nor am I prioritizing that change. All right, so inside is the aforementioned tree farm. So I always forget who I get these farms from, unless it's like a Hermitcraft player, because those guys and gals are pretty famous. But this one is some YouTuber that actually just puts out farms kind of thing. Actually, I think Grian built this in season 9 of Hermitcraft, so I was inspired by that. But essentially, not much has changed. I may have adapted a couple things, may have tweaked a few things in order to fit it in the space, like this giant obsidian wall. Other than that, it's pretty much exactly the same as who designed it in the first place. Up here is actually a bedroom, which takes forever to climb up. Yeah, so there's a switch to convert it from farming regular trees to farming the crimson and warped trees. So yeah, up here in this box in the center, I have a bed. I hide beds around my world just in non-obvious spots, just so I have a place to run to if the sun sets. Okay, so that is the Guardian Building / tree farm. Moving on to the Lighthouse. But before we head there, though, you'll notice that the minecart rail actually leads there. Well, that gives us a perfect excuse to ride the rail, which I love to do. Even though it's far less efficient than flying, I just love riding minecart rails. And it gives me a chance to show what the heck this giant monstrosity is. I wanted to have a way to go straight back to spawn or right to the lighthouse. I could have did a really low profile rail switcher thing, but instead I decided to do something fun. Right now we are actually sitting on a slime block, and you'll notice up there is a slime block on the left side and a slime block behind us. Depending on which button I push, this one will go straight and this one will go right. So we're heading to the lighthouse, I'll push this button. But essentially, well, you'll see what happens. Yes, it's funky. It's completely overbuilt and completely silly, but I really enjoy things like that in my world, so I do them frequently. Piston doors, slime launchers. If there's a good excuse to do something like that, that's exactly what I do. We are skipping this structure for right now because this is actually built after the lighthouse, so we will get to it. Sun is going down. Here is a little walkway to the lighthouse, where a cleric lives. And yes, it is the cleric that I trade rotten flesh with to get bottles of enchanting. He's probably already asleep, so let's be quiet, not wake him up. The lighthouse. So yes, I did a nice little interior, kind of a sparse. He's a very Spartan cleric. Yeah, he has his brewing stand, and he has never been healed from a zombie. So he's still got terrible traits, but I end up with so much rotten flesh from both that farm and a gold farm that actually ended up destroying all the rotten flesh. It was just too much. I don't really mind that he has bad traits. In here is actually a stairwell that leads all the way up to the functioning lighthouse. So it has a daylight sensor, and when that daylight sensor reaches a signal strength of 4, I believe, it will enable this lock hopper, which will send I think it's a sword, it's a unstackable item, through this chain, and each one of these comparators sends a signal to these center torches and functions these lights. So as you can see, I built it a little ways down so I could have a little bit more structure to build it in. But yeah, this is fully functioning. The only time it gets a little wonky is when it's raining, because rain will screw with the daylight sensor and not give me the proper measurement from it. Pretty proud of that. It turned out pretty cool. And that is the lighthouse. Let us move on to the farmhouse. So this is another structure that exists in real life. It's actually a farmhouse museum called the Selinsky-Green Farmhouse Museum. It's a really cool structure. It's actually a very old log cabin that has wood siding on the outside. And wood siding on the outside. That's a little redundant. It has wood siding. In the back, I have a chicken coop. And below the chicken coop, I actually have a chicken farm that gives me both feathers and raw chicken. And I take that raw chicken and I trade with 2 butchers that are holed up inside. So this guy and the other butcher always goes up here. Oh, he's not up here. He's making a liar of me. But yeah, these guys are just free to wander around this home. There he is. And I also have a leather worker. And that leather worker was basically just a way to get rid of my surplus leather from my cow crusher. None of these guys have been bitten and healed, so they don't have the greatest prices for things. But at this point, when I built the structure and I started trading, I just had so many items and so many blocks that it didn't really bother me that they didn't have the best deals. And that is the farmhouse structure. Actually, let's explore the interior just a little bit more. So this is the main living space. This is based on like an old organ. I also have a little wood-burning stove with a wood pile next to it. A main bedroom with his and hers, and then the leather worker was the baby, so he slept there. Upstairs is kind of fun. This is actually an attic that I kind of made look a little rough, just kind of things scattered about, like a true storage attic area. A lot of chests. I know this is not exactly good for lag or what have you, but my original idea was to actually use this area for a bit of storage, but I since abandoned that idea. All right, back downstairs, we have the kitchen area, kitchen and dining room. So a larger wood-burning stove, 2 smokers, which is where they actually, I like to imagine that they cook the meals, and then a little closet area with a under the stairs storage. This is where I'm keeping all the seeds to breed the chickens and the output of the chickens. That's how I'll put it. The output of the chickens, sure. And that, my friends, is the farmhouse. And now let's go a little out of order. So technically, after I built this farmhouse, I started on the castle. But the castle, which I know I'm just gesturing to this mountain, and you have no idea what's on the other side, but this castle is actually what I want to save for last. Now we are going to tour another area connected with the minecart track and another elevated rail stop. And this area is going to be my future village/downtown. This is based on a place in Scotland, Isle of Skye, but the city is actually called Portree on Isle of Skye. It's I think the largest city. So these are called the color houses, and there's quite a few outlooks or lookouts that you can stand on, and it's a very photograph area. But yeah, these houses are right next to the sea. Looks similar to this. I think there's actually more of them in real life and expand on quite a bit further. But in this case, I built kind of a miniaturized Minecraft version. And inside, the interiors aren't totally fleshed out yet, but they do exist. So I did go through and got all the terracotta and the quartz for the ceiling and wood for the floor and, kind of built them out. And I actually moved in a couple villagers in order to find the trial chamber, the nearest one, which is a perfect segue to kind of my rules of the road when it comes to this world. As I said, this is a forever world, meaning I started it in November 2022, so it's been over 2 years. I intend for it to be in existence, and I intend to be playing it for as long as Minecraft is still a thing in my life. The rules of the road are that I will remove chunks when Minecraft has significant updates, such as adding a structure like the trial chambers or trail ruins, so on and so forth. When certain updates happen, it's not that big of a deal and I won't bother, but when those significant updates happen, I will go right ahead and remove those chunks using, I never can remember the name of the application, but essentially I load my world in, and anything that I haven't traveled or spent a significant amount of time in, I should say, I will go ahead and prune. Some of that pruning is for areas that I did spend, maybe 10, 20 minutes in, but I didn't deem necessary. I didn't build anything there or what have you. Another rule of the road, and these are just quirks that I have, I never leave a block behind. So when I'm mining, even if I'm mining a giant hole or doing major terraforming, and it's just chest upon chest, double chests of grass or stone or cobble, I will pick it all up and I will store it all. You could call that more of a hoarding mentality, but so many times I've ran into issues where I just didn't have enough blocks, so I'm a little gun shy about not having those blocks. So I'll go right ahead and save everything. Okay, so yes, this is, again, Portree, a new downtown. My idea is to build out these shops as kind of a trading hall, primarily for masons, stonemasons rather. And the reason for that is because I would like to have all of the versions of terracotta tradable. Even though I have a clay farm and all that good stuff, I would like that to be tradable. So I am going to fill these and pretend that each storefront is like a different variety of terracotta, and they'll have their rooms upstairs and all that good stuff. It is now night, so I am going to go to sleep, and we will continue on our tour momentarily. Okay, so we left off right here in Portree. I want to leave the castle for last, so I'm actually going to jump way ahead. This is the most recent thing I've built. Actually, the most recent things I've built are in the Nether, so that is a lie. This is the most recent overworld thing that I've built, and we're about to fly out there. And you'll be able to tell that it's most recent because we're on 1.21.4, I believe, right now. You'll immediately recognize why this is most definitely the most recent thing. All right, and that is this oil rig way out here in the ocean. And I built it out in the ocean because I wanted a place where it was very easy to spawn only one kind of mob. And that kind of mob is the creaking. I found a pale forest. I found 4 of the creaking hearts in that one pale forest and decided I'm going to build a farm specifically for these 4 hearts. This is of my own design, but essentially at nighttime, the creaking will spawn in this pad right here. This is the only spawnable place. Everything else is unspawnable. And they will be pushed down this water into this corner right here. And I will swing at them right here. And all of their resin will be clumped up right here in this large chest. And the rest of this is dedicated to basically an etho hopper clock with some limited redstone, turning on the pistons and the dispensers with water on a timer. I'm pretty proud of this one. It just, not just the redstone in the farm, but the look of it. I think it's pretty nice, purpose-built kind of structure. Fits the pale garden aesthetic with the little resin blocks here and there, little resin up here and up there. That, and you can see render distance just is slightly lower than it needs to be, but you can see the Portree houses as well as the infrastructure, and sometimes you can even see the lighthouse depending on whether the Bobby mod is kicking in or what have you. Over here I have a bed that is just far enough away from the creaking that I can sleep when they're spawned and in their place. Throughout I have some lights and stuff. It looks really cool, especially at night. It's very bright and it just looks really neat. I have a boat down here that during a very early trip in the inception of my world, from the creation of my world rather, I took a boat out and lost it. And while I was building this structure, I saw something on the horizon. I'm like, what is that? So I flew over there and it was my boat that I lost like 2 years ago. So I just kind of parked it there temporarily. Don't really have a use for it. So anyway, that is my creaking farm. I nearly forgot. We have one more stop before we tour the castle. It's on the way though, so shouldn't be bad. You may have noticed a little bit of this infrastructure. There's a dam right here. And here is a river biome completely drained, which was probably one of the biggest early projects that I did. And then I terraformed this area after I drained the river biome. All because I wanted to build a squid farm. So this is like a classic squid farm design. It has water columns where all the squid spawn inside of the column and then step outside and fall into magma block or their doom, depending on how you want to look at it. We also get quite a bit of salmon from this farm. One AFK session of like a couple hours and you will have stacks and stacks of squid. But this design right here is very similar to my castle design. So my castle towers actually got built before this, but I needed a lot of squid ink because I needed tinted glass. So ironically, this is all tinted glass as well. So I actually had to run the farm in order to get the glass to get more glass. But yeah, I needed the tinted glass, and the Folly is where I got the shards. So as you'll see when we go to the castle, there's just a ton of tinted glass. All right, guys, if you made it this far, you probably know what I'm about to say. This episode is already 45 minutes long. I significantly underestimated the length of time it would take to go through a 2-year-old world. So the castle's going to have to wait for part 2. I apologize, but I will start working on that video immediately. And if you like this one, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, well, have a good one.